to talk a little bit about a topic that I'm very passionate about. It's really this new world in which we're living in, and it comes with a whole new set of rules. And if we don't approach it in a new way, we're not going to really be able to lead and thrive and be able to survive in this world. And I have two goals today with you. Number one, much like this experience has been for me, I hope to make you a little bit uncomfortable. I want to bring you to the edge. And then the second thing I would love to do is, if I am successful, is to provide you with a different perspective. Because when you get a change in perspective is when you truly make progress. So I hope to do that. There are two big projects. Now, the other challenge I've got is being the third technology speaker with two very good technology speakers ahead of me, and the video that was played by Deepak before I even showed up. There's some duplication of content, but we'll work it through. So bear with me. I'm half Cuban and half Chinese. So having some sort of balance of the yin and the yang is very important. And I've chosen in this presentation to look at technology from the positive side. I will tell you some of the concerns I have. But, you know, we can argue whether something is good or bad, and there's always two sides to every story. And I think what I plead with you is to really look at the positives and the gifts that this incredible technology brings. And that's the approach I'm going to take. An incredible author, scholar, wrote extensively about technology by the name of Marshall McLuhan. He wrote a book back in 1964, Understanding Media and the Extensions of Man. And he said something really, really interesting to me. He basically said, we shape our tools, and therefore our tools shape us. And if you think of the tools that we have invented, which you heard on the internet and all the things with social, everything that's going on, it's really shaping us in every aspect. So if we explore some of these forces that are here, one of them is the rate and speed of change. I have a question for you. I know it's kind of late in the day. How many of you think the world is moving at a comfortable pace? Raise your hand, and do it with a lot of vim and vigor. Anybody? Do I see anybody? One? Oh, one hand, two hands. Okay, so a couple of people think the world is moving comfortably. Most of the time I do that, everyone turns and sneers at them and snarls, and, you know, because everyone feels this thing that things are moving so fast. But let me play a game with you, and one question here was already kind of said already. What I want to do is I want to post something, could be a fact or fiction, and if you think it's true, I want you to raise your hand. So here's the first one I want to post out there. 20 homes in the U.S. in 2010 use more bandwidth than the entire internet did in 1995. How many of you think that one's true? Raise your hand. Mostly everybody. This is a smart group. Yeah, absolutely. The second one we kind of talked about already, right? We saw it on the video. 1 in 5 couples meet online, and 1 in 5 divorces are blamed on Facebook. Okay, that we heard before in the video. How about this one? More video was uploaded to YouTube in the last month than if ABC, NBC, and CBS had been airing new content 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, before you raise your hand, since 1948. Which was the year that they began broadcasting. How many of you think that one's true? Okay. All right, hey, this is easy. This is a smart crowd. How about this one? More people return home for their cell phone than their wallets. Any takers on that one? Yeah, we all do, right? We can always get somebody to buy us a drink, but God forbid we don't have that phone with us. And how about this one? 2 out of 3 students globally would prefer the internet over a car. How many of you think that one's true? Absolutely. Right? This is the way they connect. They want their social lives. Everything is connected in this manner. And I want you to consider a couple of things, because I think we sometimes don't look back and really kind of take it all in and understand the impact of the world in which we're living. Right? 10 years ago, there was no social networks. Right? We're talking with Deepak with 1 million users, and he's out at the Four Seasons in Puerto Rico, and he's not happy with them. He's going to tweet it out and they give him 60 grand. 10 years ago, he wouldn't have been able to do that. Right? Or go further than that and say 20 years ago, we didn't have the internet. I remember in 1997 talking to executives saying you need to build a web presence for your business. Right? So this is not something that's been around for 50 years and we have a lot of experience, or 100 years, or thousands of years. It's 20 years. If you go a little bit further, if you work in web programming, online marketing, or the mobile phone industries, your businesses did not exist and jobs did not exist 20 years ago. And these are things we need to take into consideration. I don't know how many of you had this block phone, but I sure did. It's kind of a reminder of how quickly things have changed, and that's not that old. There's a second force going, which has been referred to, but we really need to understand it. It's this whole force of people having power. So let me ask you a question. I know this is a very smart group here. Who was Time Magazine's Person of the Year in 2006? Who knows? Shout it out. Who? Thank you. It was me. Yes. And it was you, and it was you, and it was Deepak, and it was all of us, because for the first time, all of us had access to information. Information was democratized. You know, it was not longer a source of hoarding and power. We had as much capability when you go see a doctor to study up, understand what your symptoms are, what you're feeling, what are the clinical trials that are going, and have a dialogue as peers with them. And it throws them off, right? It changes everything. So who was the Person of the Year in 2010? This is a very smart crowd. I know this is coming right away. Who was it? Zuckerberg. Good old Mark. Blue-eyed Mark there, right? And the point to be made here, to really understand it, is that in a mere 4 years, from 2006 to 2010, 4 years, we went from the power of you and I to the power of we. We as a society, we as a group, we have a voice and we can change injustices. We can fight against things that are not fair. We can really drive things in a way that were never possible before. And that is some of the beauty of this technology. And we've seen it manifest itself in a number of different ways. Oscar Morales in Colombia wanted to fight against the FARC. He starts a Facebook fan page, 1 million people against the FARC. And in 30 days, Oscar Morales is able to get 12 million people in 120 countries to protest against the FARC. One man using Facebook. Now that's pretty much powerful. We have a voice. We've seen what's happened in Egypt in the Arab Spring, where the youth have been able to organize around social media. It gives you courage to say, I'm not happy with someone. Well, neither am I. Why don't we do something about it? Okay, where do we want to meet? And when that happens, you get this kind of turnout, and the rest is history. People have power. So this powerful environment that we're all living in, and I have a whole bunch of forces that I talk about, but due to time I couldn't do it, but this current environment, we're really at a turning point in history. Every business, society, and government is being rebooted. I remember 10, 12 years ago when the music industry was being rebooted. That's no longer the case. We're all being rebooted. I don't care if you're in government, you're in the music industry, you're in any corporation, the financial systems, the newspaper. You go and you pick it. Every single one of us, regardless of the industry, we're going through a reboot. And I get to talk to a lot of these CEOs, and I can see in their eyes how anxious they are because of the speed and how things are going. Now, as a matter of fact, there was an interesting article in Fast Company that said in 10 years, over 40% of the Fortune 500 will no longer be here. That's a pretty dramatic statement, right? They've always failed, and companies are not permanent for the most part. But to have this dramatic failure is quite astonishing. And you saw this quote, and I do agree, Darwin said you have to change, and absolutely, you do have to change. But here's the point to make in this one. And again, back to Marshall. Innumerable confusion and a profound feeling of despair invariably emerges in periods of great technological and cultural transitions. Our age of anxiety is in great part the result of trying to do today's job with yesterday's tools and with yesterday's concepts. When you do that, it creates anxiety, and I see a lot of anxiety in the circles that I go to. I see it all the time with the executives that I deal with and the companies that I deal with. And, you know, if you think about it, is how do we survive this? How do we thrive in this crazy environment? Well, a couple of things. I just completed, or finishing, putting the last touches on a book, which I've branded myself as a technowist, right? Which is all about leveraging the present and leading to the future, right? You have to accept the present. It's kind of funny that there's so much talk about the present in this conference, right? I've embraced it, and we all need to embrace it. And really, the goal of the book is how not to become obsolete. We become obsolete in this world in a nanosecond, right? So the book tells you that's my goal, and through the book, you know, the approach is quite simple, leveraging the present, preparing for the future, and then there's a process of actions that one can take in order not to do it. I'm not going to bore you with the details of this today, but happy to talk to you further about it, maybe over dinner. But we need to take action, and it starts with us being open to embrace the possibilities that are out there. It encompasses us experimenting and trying new things and not being fearful of it. Because if we don't do that, you never get to the point where you can measure and understand what works and what doesn't. And ultimately to the utopia, which is all about leveraging the technology and the things that are available. It's not the technology, it's what you can do with it and how it enhances and changes your life for the better. So we've got two examples I'm going to cover very, very quickly here, and one of them example is around video, and I picked video because it's one that it's very dear and near to my heart. My company produces a lot of really incredible video, and I've seen the transformation in my life and in the lives of everyone that's experienced it. There's now the ability to create these very immersive experiences that are lifelike, and it's just like being there, right? And it's changed my life. It's not uncommon now for me to tell my wife, Tina, I'm going to go to India. And I get out of bed in my house in New Jersey, go down, do my call on video, and an hour later I'll come back, and she'll always say, how was your trip? I say, it was wonderful. Accomplished everything I needed. Right? It's transformed my life. It allows me to go to different places and do different things without having to physically be there. I'm there through bits. Right? And it's really transformative. And if you start thinking about the power of technologies like this, beside being there, is I do remote presentations. Here I'm doing a presentation to Barcelona, right, using the technology. Or better yet, right, think of it being pervasive when it gets into the home, where the primary way we all communicate is going to be with this ultra high-end video. Think of how we're going to be doing tutoring, or think of how we're going to be doing medical, right? You have a doctor who's remote, who's a specialist. You have, a nurse or a practitioner there. They use some devices, and they can do all the consulting. This is being done now. This is not for the future. This is the here and the now, but we're going to continue to extend it as it becomes pervasive. In the future, there'll be a lot of cool things like translation, right? We're talking about a lot of different things that could happen. This is eminent, where we're having a video conversation in one language and it's being automatically translated to another. Think of the barriers that will be broken when we do that. On-the-fly translations. There's other technologies where we'll have holograms that are becoming, and a variety of other things that I've already demonstrated in Brazil and a couple of other places, bringing my boss and CEO, John Chambers, on stage. Right? This is here, and it's eminent. It's going to challenge us in many, many ways. Because that augmented reality or that virtual reality, we're going to have a hard time deciphering what's real and what isn't, and is it different? And what are the implications for that happening? The second one is social media, and I have a question for you here, too, and they've talked about it quite a bit. What percentage of U.S. companies block social media from the corporate internet? Let me give you a guess here. How many of you think that it's 12%? Raise your hand. Well, let me give them all to you first. Right? 26? Anybody? 33? Do we have any takers for anything? 54? Okay, boy, you people have no optimism on the in spirit of the company. No, it's actually, the correct answer is 33%. Think of the video that Deepak showed and the power that social media has, and yet so many organizations are blocking it. Why are they doing it? They don't understand it, right? And it puts us in a very difficult spot. Why? Because most of the CEOs that are running those organizations are my age, and I am not the age demographic nor Deepak for this kind of tools and these kinds of technology. It's the tools of our children. It's the tools of the Generation Y, and they're using it like crazy, and we need to adopt, right? And again, with the Facebook, I always tell the CEOs, I said, oh, you block Facebook. Oh, that's interesting. I said, do you take their phone away? Right? Because you're not blocking them. If Egypt couldn't block them, you're not going to block them. Come on. Who are you kidding? So don't you think it's better to embrace, to really use the tools that are available? How many of you use Twitter? This is a really smart group here. How many of you do? Raise your hand and be proud. Okay, not that many, believe it or not. I thought there would be more. Actually, my guess was about 15%. Now, for those of you that are not using it, why are you not using it? See, and I'm getting a phone because I think that's my 15-minute there, and I'm going to be concluding here in a moment. Why are you not using it? It's boring. What else? Just another thing, no time. What else? What is it? You like Facebook better. Okay. Well, all of them are valid reasons. This is what I typically hear. I don't want to read what someone had for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, right? I don't know what to say because they think they have to say something by having a Twitter account. I don't see the value in it, right? Okay, I believe it that. What can you say in 140 characters, right? They're not saying, tiny URL and all this other stuff, and they don't have the time. And this is what I hear. And my experience is Twitter, to me, is one of the most interesting technologies that exist because it allows you to follow people like a Deepak who are experts in a field, very deep experts, and they're sharing their knowledge, their consciousness, their self, their being with you, and they're curating this information for you. If I want to know about spirituality and meditation, all the things that Deepak does, all I got to do is follow him. And he's curating the content. And by the way, Deepak doesn't have to say, Carlos, I approve you, like you have to do in Facebook. You're my friend. Maybe now he will. But, you know, my friend, you can follow anybody you want. And being open and embracing it. So my first task for all of you is, if you're not using it, experiment with it. Be open to the change. Try it for 30 days, not 1 hour. Make a determination of whether it works for you or not, because if you do that, you're going to be open to get to the point where you can actually leverage it. And I'll show you one quick example for me. We're all going to be info curators. I load everything into my Flipboard off of my Twitter and Facebook feed, and this is how I receive my news in the morning, right? Because they're full articles. It's aggregated for me. By doing that and being open to it, I have something that I leverage called paper.li that takes my Twitter feed and actually produces a newspaper for me every day to all my followers, which has a circulation of over 20,000 people. And I do nothing to produce this newspaper. Nothing. I've set the filters, I've set what I wanted, and now there it is. I am curating information for people in a way, right, that I don't have to work. That's leverage. But it doesn't, you can't get there unless you're open to embracing the change. And that's what I ask you to do today. I want to close again with the yin and the yang. And I want to close on that because I told you and asked you of why you should do it for yourself. But let me challenge you on another one. I have a lot of concerns. And the concerns that I have is that this social media, they're nuclear-powered weapons. This is not a fad, you know, and either you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. And that's to be determined. And the fear that I have is that people our age, that are the people with wisdom, and are not using these nuclear-powered tools, how are we guiding our children on what's right and what's wrong if we don't understand the tools of the day? Thank you so much for your time.
Great.